What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/BlackholeRevenge. Here are some stories, first one being, "You want to mug me? Enjoy the wheelchair and permanent brain damage." This was dug up by me on Removed It as the original was deleted, so this isn't my story, so yeah, don't blame me if this is fecked up, so anyways, here's the story. Okay, to preface this entire messed up story, this all took place 30 years ago. My memory is not that great, and I might get some things wrong. Also, I go into some graphic details. You have been warned. In 1989, I was a 19-year-old kid living in New York City. I was working as a delivery guy at a dingy hole-in-the-wall pizza place in Hell's Kitchen that's long since gone out of business, and living paycheck to paycheck. I had moved to New York looking for work after my uncle's construction company went under, and had found a tiny crap hole of an apartment, which was the only thing I could afford on the salary I got from the pizza place. The only reasons I took the job was I needed money and it was extremely close to my apartment, only a short walk down a back alley. Hint, hint, the alley is important. I want you all to keep in mind while reading this, the New York of 30 years ago was not the touristy New York of today. Murders were a lot more common. You would see hookers working the corner pretty often. Times Square was a cesspool of nudie bars and adult theaters. Gangs would rob people on the subway, and it was almost every day where I lived, you would see a druggie passed out in an alley or along the side of the road. The whole ordeal started just after closing one night in July. The guy who owned the joint, Paolo, said that I could take some leftover pizza home with me that had been sitting under the heat lamp all day. But hey, at least it was free. I had been working at the pizza place for about a year by this point, and I was on really good terms with Paolo and his brother Joseph, who both ran the joint. Paolo was easily pushing 300 pounds and had a habit of smoking a giant cigar while cooking. Joseph was always in the back, handling the money side of things and taking phone orders. The restaurant had an exit into the alley, which I would take to get back to my place. There would usually be a homeless vet named Alfonso that would sleep next to the hot air vent behind the place, who would bum a smoke off me, and we would shoot the crap for a few minutes after my shift. After talking with him, I started to walk home, and after I had gotten quite a distance away down the alley, I heard some bottles rustling behind a dumpster that was right ahead of me. My first thought was it was some rats, until this crazy-eyed dude swung out from behind it with a hunting knife in one hand and a metal bat in the other. I remember this guy looked like your stereotypical druggie. Track marks all over his arms, disgusting clothes, wild dirty hair, and fidgeting like no tomorrow. He started yelling and half screaming at me to give him my wallet. At that point, my adrenaline was through the roof as I had never been mugged before. I was carrying the pizza box with two hands, and when I shifted it to my left hand to reach into my back pocket for my wallet with my right, he started advancing on me. He started muttering to himself, asking why I was doing that and sort of grunting while jabbing at the air in front of him. At this point, I know this guy is high off his ass on something or a definite head case. He was really close to me by this point, and before I could take my wallet out, he loaded up his right arm and slashed me across the face with a hunting knife just below my left eye. At first, it didn't really hit me, and I was stunned for a second. It was at that point I started thinking, this is it. I'm gonna die in a freaking alley over the $4 I have in my wallet. That's when I decided to start fighting. If I was going down, I was doing it swinging. I threw the pizza box in his face, which made him step back a little bit, and using both hands, I grabbed the bat out of his left hand that he was still holding. I flipped it around and aimed for the outside of his left knee, which is the one closest to me. It connected, and I heard a snap when it buckled inwards. This brought him to one knee, but he started to get back up again like he couldn't even feel it. I swung as hard as I could and hit the left side of his temple, which made a crunch sound before he crumpled to the concrete. I remember being so incredibly scared, absolutely terrified. I don't remember much after this. Years after this happened, when I went to see a psychiatrist for other reasons, and this was brought up, and she told me that it was likely because my mind was trying to shield me from the trauma of the whole experience. The next thing I remember is being soaked in blood and standing above this guy. I knew he was still alive, as he was gurgling blood out of his mouth and his chest was still rising and falling. There was blood coming out of his ears, nose, and mouth. His right hand and arm that had been holding the knife was a mangled mess with fingers jutting out every which way, while the knife was a good 4 feet away on the ground. I dropped the bat and half stumbled, half walked back to the pizza place. Alfonso had heard the screaming and came to look. He told me that I had a glazed over look to me and I was almost completely soaked in blood. He led me back to the pizza joint where Paolo started calling the cops and an ambulance, and Paolo's brother, Joseph, rushed out of the back and grabbed a bottle of cheap Prosecco we had from below the counter to douse my cut while stemming the bleeding with table napkins. I spent the night in the hospital because apparently I was disoriented and so confused. I didn't know where I was because of blood loss. The next day, I was doing better, and there were 2 cops that came to take my statement. After I had told my side of the story, the older looking of the 2 cops said that after 10 years on the job, that guy took the worst beating he'd seen anyone take and survive. The younger looking one started telling me what I had done to the guy, which included severed knee ligaments, broken and dislocated fingers, broken ribs which had punctured a lung, a broken femur, multiple crushed and pulverized bones, a severed spinal cord with a couple broken vertebrae, a burst eardrum, multiple teeth knocked out, completely fractured jaw, a broken nose, a burst eye, a destroyed eye socket, and a completely destroyed cheekbone. He also told me that I had hit his skull so hard, there was spinal fluid leaking out of his ears. They said that they had spoken to Alfonso, Paolo, and Joseph, and they corroborated my story that the back was the junkies and I had most likely acted in self-defense. Although I had no answer to their question of why didn't I stop after he went down besides, I don't know, and I don't remember. After a couple of days, I was discharged, and after just a little while, I was back to working at the pizza place. Although I now had a massive scar running down the side of my face, and Paolo jokingly called me Scarface all the time. Even now, I jokingly say to my wife before sexy time, "Say hello to my little friend," which we still giggle maniacally about together. I was also super jumpy right after the fact whenever I heard bottles clanging together, which unfortunately happened a lot because Joseph used to take the empty Coke bottles to the recycling plant at the end of every week. What made me tell this story here is that recently I thought about how much of the junkie's blood might have gotten in my mouth or in the slash across my face. At the time it happened, the whole HIV/AIDS panic was in full swing, and the guy being a junkie instantly made me realize how much crap I could be in. If I was infected without knowing it, I could have passed it on to my wife or even my children by accident. After quite the panic between me and my wife because of overlooking this, we got the blood results back just a bit ago and thankfully I am completely clean. My doctor said that if I was infected back then, symptoms would have likely manifested by now as well. So there. That is my incredibly long-winded story about one of the scariest events in my life, and the resurgent panic it brought up just a bit ago. I would be happy to answer any questions you have about it, but I'm taking a flight for work in a bit, so you probably won't get a response from me for a few hours. Wow, that was quite the visceral story there. This story's called I'm Fat, Not Weak. I posted this in 2 other revenge subreddits, was told to come here. I would like to start off by saying that when I get angry, I get furious. My sister calls it Hulk mode, where I get huge doses of adrenaline. My rage does not mix well with the fact I don't mind watching people suffer. I'm not saying I'm a bad guy, I help people when I can, but if someone does me or someone I care about wrong, I enjoy their pain with little to no remorse. Anyway, on to the story. I am pretty much the unofficial caretaker of my youngest sister. Let's call her little sister. I am 17 and she is 6, but as her big brother and me looking around early to mid-20s, I'm constantly mistaken as her dad. I always walk her to and from school. Her elementary school is about 3 blocks from the high school. I do schooling online, so there are constantly kids my age walking by our house. Now, I love my little sister more than anything in the world, and am very protective of her. We love playing together and building snowmen in winter. This is exactly when the incident took place. We live in Indiana, so we get some crazy snow. We were building a snow person family while I, the big strong brother, would pretty much stack the snowmen on top of each other while little sister balled them up. I never leave little sister alone outside for more than a few seconds, and always keep an eye on her. We have a fenced-in yard, so it should be fine, right? Keep playing, I'll go get some hot cocoa. Yay! Cue piece of sushi. A kid I knew well, but never had the pleasure of meeting. As I make the hot chocolate, I hear little sister crying. I just figured one of the 4 snowmen fell over or something like that. Little sister, calm down and come here. The hot cocoa is ready. She doesn't come and doesn't stop crying. But then I hear laughing. I step outside, freezing cold with no coat. There were 3 kids, all around my age. We will call the one I knew from school Craphead 1. The others will be Craphead 2 and 3. The snowmen were destroyed, sticks and scarves thrown everywhere, but that wasn't important. Well, if it isn't Humpty Dumpty, is this your dad? Little sister doesn't answer, and I guess Craphead 1 doesn't like that. He slaps and pushes my little sister down with a strike to the face. Her nose all red, she falls and hits her head on the sidewalk and starts screaming, blood coming from the back of her head. At first, my heart stopped. My first thought and biggest fear was brain damage. I rushed over to little sister and tried to pick her up and take her inside and call an ambulance. Crapheads 1, 2, and 3 had walked up behind me without me noticing. I was too distracted. As I started to lift her, Craphead 2 grabbed my arms, causing me to drop little sister, luckily into the soft snow this time. Let go of me, you mother lover! She's hurt! As Craphead 2 held me, Craphead 3 picked up a pile of snow and just piled it on my little sister's face. By now, little sister wasn't screaming. It was a weak whimper, and I was so scared she was going to die. Black. Most people say they see red or time slows, but not me. I knew exactly what I was doing, but it was like I was watching it on TV. I bit Craphead 2 on the thumb, drawing blood. He yells as he lets go and jumps back. I lunge forward. Now, I'm fat. I'm 6 foot on the dot and about 330 pounds. But I also have been playing football my whole life and knew how to use my size. I slam into Craphead 3 as hard as I could, taking him to the ground. I was on top of him and bringing the hammer down. I don't really know how many times I hit him, but he lost teeth, shattered his nose, and lost eyesight in one eye. My knuckles were shredded raw, but I had so much adrenaline in me I didn't feel it. In fact, the only reason I stopped was because I heard I didn't really hear it, I felt it. Then I felt liquid trickle down the back of my head. Blood. Craphead 1 had hit me over the head with a brick. Now, this hurt after the fight, but again, when I have adrenaline pumping through me, I feel nothing. I charged at him as he raised the brick again. He must not have expected my speed with my size because he jumped back and hesitated. I didn't. I slammed him into my dad's truck. Parked on the roadside, he dropped the brick and I punched him in the gut. He bent over and I lifted my knee to meet with his face. He falls to the ground. I pick up the brick. I walk beside him and put it on the sidewalk. I put his hand on the brick. No resistance from him. I stomped as hard as I could. He screamed, louder than anything I've heard. I do the same with his other hand. Craphead 2, after seeing his buddies pummeled, ran. Turns out he called the cops and said I killed his friends. I walked over to little sister, who was breathing, but it was weak. I called an ambulance, but the only thing I muttered was, "She's hurt," and our address. When I hung up, I passed out. I woke up handcuffed to a hospital bed, not knowing what happened. Apparently, I broke multiple bones in my hands and needed stitches on the back of my head. My little sister was fine. She had just lost a lot of blood. Crapheads 1, 2, and 3, not so lucky. The only thing I did to Craphead 2 was bite his thumb. I guess I didn't know that I almost bit his thumb off. Craphead 1 had serious hand injuries, needing multiple surgeries on each hand. I later found out that he lost 3 fingers and can't use his right hand. But Craphead 3 got the worst of it. He lost his sense of smell, lost eyesight in one eye, bit a hole in his tongue, fractured his jaw, lost multiple teeth, fractured his skull, and had major swelling on the brain, in which he barely survived by the skin of his teeth, or at least the ones he has left. After a bit, a nurse came and checked on me, saw I was awake, and went to get a cop. The cop came in and asked me a bunch of questions, and I told the truth. I don't know. It was black. He then uncuffed me from the bed and said that they watched our security cameras, and while a bit excessive, I acted in defense of myself and others. Some might ask how I can describe the fight so well if it was all black, unreal, like watching TV. Another good question would be about the beginning where I said I enjoyed others suffering, if they deserved it. To answer both of those questions, I have the security recording. The police took the footage from the monitor, but the camera also gets sent to our phones. I love watching it. I've probably watched it a million times. I only have 2 regrets about the whole ordeal. I let Craphead 2 get away with only a small injury. My last regret? I don't think they suffered enough. The footage showed that the fight lasted less than 1.5 minutes. I wish it would have been hours. Oh, the wonders of the sympathetic nervous system. I don't have much to say other than that this guy did what I'm sure a lot of other guys have fantasized about. Getting into a situation where you have to fight to defend, the life of you and someone you care about. And I know for a fact I've daydreamed about this sort of thing so many times. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.